At one point in my sales career, I had a manager who told me to focus on having business conversations with prospects instead of going out there and pitching the product. I agreed then and still agree now how that might be a more effective approach than just primarily talking about the product. But the challenge I had with executing on that direction was that I was a mid-market rep and my territory was the Gulf Coast of Texas and Louisiana. There were thousands of businesses in my territory across industries like healthcare, manufacturing, retail, services, restaurants, logistics, and a lot more. And when you're cold calling into so many different industries, it's almost impossible to have deep, meaningful knowledge of any of the different businesses you're talking to in terms of understanding how they work, current trends, the competitive landscape, and knowing some of the industry lingo. You simply don't have the time and focus to become an expert in all the different industries you're trying to sell into. But I've actually figured out a shortcut for this that will help you to sound like an industry expert without having to do all of the hours of research for all of your different cold calls. And the concept here is fairly simple. Instead of trying to study every industry, what we are going to do is create a set of talking points for each industry. And by simply having the different things to say and ask for the different industries, not only will you make a better impression with the prospects you're trying to sell to, but you will actually be more effective at building interest, gathering key information, and generating leads. And you might say, well, that makes sense and that sounds easier, but how am I going to create those talking points without having deep knowledge of each industry or without doing the hours of research? And the trick here is that we actually have a process where you can create a set of talking points that make you sound really good without having the deep underlying knowledge and expertise. And so that's what I'm going to show you in this video. I'm going to show you how to create the talking points for the different industries by going through this process. And just a couple quick disclaimers before we get started. First, if you're looking at this and feeling intimidated or overwhelmed, keep in mind that there's a way to use AI to create all of these talking points, and I'll show you that at the end of the video. The other thing is that when we go through this process, I'm going to be using an example product and an example industry that we're trying to sell that product to. And you will most likely not care about the example product that I'm talking about because you most likely do not sell this product, but try to stay with me on this because this example that I show you will make it more clear how to create your talking points for your product and selling into different industries. So the first step is to identify the product that you're creating the sales message for, or the product that you're trying to sell when you're cold calling. And this first step should be pretty easy for you because you already know what product you're trying to sell and you likely already have a lot of product knowledge in your head. And for demonstration purposes, I'm actually going to use the product that I sold when I had that territory with thousands of accounts and a lot of different industries. I sold software at that time, and one of the products that I sold was employee scheduling software. So if you think of a company that has a lot of different employees and those employees work on shifts, in today's day and age, just about all of those companies are using some sort of software to create and manage those schedules for those employees. And the second step in the process is to identify the target audience that we are communicating with or that we're trying to sell to. And this step should also be very easy for you because all you need to do is select the industry that you are targeting and trying to create talking points for. And for demonstration purposes, I'm going to select one of the industries I sold into with this product, and that was healthcare and hospitals. And once we identify that, we can quickly move on to the third step in the process. And this is to identify the value that our product or service can deliver to the target audience. So what improvements can my employee scheduling software help to deliver to hospitals? And to help you to get ideas for how you might be able to help the target industry, I've given you a checklist of areas here where your product or service might create improvements. And to demonstrate this, let's think about scheduling employees selling that software to hospitals. Our software helps hospitals to improve the quality of care by optimizing the staffing of resources. Our scheduling software can help hospitals to decrease the complexity of scheduling staff, skills, and certifications. We can help hospitals to minimize overtime and labor costs. Once you come up with between 3 to 6 improvements, we can move on to the next step, which is to brainstorm the pain points that our product or service helps to solve for this particular industry. What we can do is we can actually bring over the improvements we came up with on the last step, because the improvements and the pain points kind of have a yin and a yang relationship. If you help to improve something for a hospital, you are likely decreasing a problem or preventing a problem. So if we created a good list of improvements that align with the industry that we're trying to sell into, what we can do is we can look at each improvement and ask ourselves, what is the opposite of that? And we can come up with challenges and pain points like hospitals usually find it difficult to schedule the correct number of resources, skills, and certifications. And if they're not scheduling resources correctly, patient care can be directly impacted by their ability to create those schedules correctly. And if they're not scheduling resources correctly, they're going to get killed by overtime and labor costs. So hopefully you can see there that if we continued with that, we will end up with a list of pain points that are very closely aligned with what hospitals are going through and likely to be good hot button issues to talk about when we're cold calling, cold emailing, delivering our demonstration or presentation. And so again, if you come up with 3 to 6 pain points, then we can move on to the next step, which is to create questions to ask. And another trick here, we can actually bring back the pain points we just created and very easily create a question for each pain point. How difficult is it for you to create schedules? How much of a priority is it for you to improve quality care? How do you feel about either having too many resources getting scheduled, or are you usually not scheduling enough? And again, if we create a good list of pain points that align with the industry we're selling into, we're going to end up with a good list of pain questions to ask. And I recommend you create a second list of questions that I refer to as current state questions. And these are just questions that help you to identify what is the prospect doing in the area where I have something to sell. So these would be the questions like, what type of employee scheduling software are you using today? How long have you been using it? How is it working for you? How many employees do you have? How many sites do you have? And then the last step in the process is to come up with a customer example to share. And what you can do when you're cold calling into different industries is create different customer examples for each of the industries. And here's just a really quick template that you could use, which is identifying a customer that you can mention, a problem they had before they worked with you, the solution that you delivered that helped them to solve that problem, and then a couple improvements that your solution helped them to deliver. Going through all of those steps creates all of these talking points. And each of these sets of bullet points become what we call building blocks. And you can then mix and match those building blocks to create your cold call script, or at least an outline of what to talk about when you're cold calling. And this is how this process makes it easy for you to sound like an industry expert, because when you're cold calling, you can open the call with your value proposition, which is aligned with the industry. You can transition to asking questions that are aligned with the industry. You can talk about the pain points that are specific to that industry. And so even though you don't have that deep level of expertise and experience, you can still sound good, make a good impression, and become more effective at building interest and generating leads when you're cold calling. And so, as I mentioned, we have an AI tool that will allow you to create all of your different industry related talking points in a matter of seconds. And that's because our software of Sales Scripter aligns with that process that I showed you. And all you have to do is enter the product or service you sell and then enter the industry you're trying to sell into. And if you click start, our software is integrated with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is going to do all of the sales copywriting for you. And ChatGPT is really good at taking your product and then thinking about how does that apply to the industry you've mentioned to create a great list of improvements you can deliver to that industry, pain points they might be concerned with, pain questions to ask, current state questions to ask. And when you have all of these bullet points inside of Sales Scripter, Sales Scripter uses those as your building blocks, and then the software actually has a whole library of cold call scripts that mix and match those different building blocks to give you different outlines of conversations you can try to have when you're cold calling. So hopefully that gives you some new ideas for how to improve your sales and cold calling efforts. If you have questions or you want more information, the best place to go is salesscripter.com. Thanks for being here. Again, hope this was helpful, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.